invite the Prime Minister on indulgence and ask members to resume their seats quickly and quietly. The Prime Minister has the call.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. Well, today Australians right across this great sport-loving nation of ours will be mourning the passing of one of our best-loved commentators. Dennis Cometti was a proud son of Western Australia who played for West Perth in the WAFL, the WAFL. Yet he also, is much better known by being the voice of, or one of the voices of, Australian sport. For 5 decades, he broadcast footy, 3 Olympics and virtually every other sport on TV and radio. We were very familiar with that velvet voice of his. He elevated for us by having an eagle eye, a brilliant insight, and his distinctive humour, the product of both meticulous preparation and spontaneous genius. No tribute would be complete without giving a few quotes, not just the iconic centimetre perfect or like a cork in the ocean, but those brilliant offbeat observations that he made. The Magpies ought to be kicking themselves right now, but with their luck they'd probably miss. Barlow to Bateman, the Hawks are attacking alphabetically. Liberatore went into the last pack optimistically, but came out misty optically. Or describing the then young Melbourne Demons player, now Richmond Tigers coach Adam Uze, as a lousy Scrabble hand but a very good young player. He had a particular focus on people's names. He said at one stage, "There's Koutoufides, more vowels than possessions today." Dennis inspired countless imitators, but he remained the best, a true original. He had a brilliant partnership and true friendship with the legendary Bruce McAvaney, and this was because Dennis's sense of humour was matched by a powerful sense of occasion, an ability to recognise a defining moment and rise to it. Dennis Cometti will be sadly missed by his family, his loved ones, so many colleagues who learned so much from his generosity and skill, but importantly by Australians who've never met him but who loved him and enjoyed his contribution. And he'll live forever in some of the happiest sporting memories of Australians everywhere. May he rest in peace.
Indulgence, the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I rise to join the Prime Minister in honouring the life of Dennis Cometti. Dennis Cometti didn't just have a voice that resonated, he had a voice that was instantly recognisable. A voice that energised AFL games and energised the Olympics. Through his voice we felt the anticipation of a centre bounce, the exhilaration of a soaring mark, the elation of a spectacular goal that was, as we heard from the Prime Minister, so often centimetre perfect, one of his many quotes that were so well known. And of course, and as someone who comes from a state where there's a little less AFL, the one I remember best was Kieran Perkins' absolutely extraordinary triumph in the 1500-metre freestyle final back in the 1996 Olympics 30 years ago. He served for decades the great game of Australian rules football. He was more than a commentator, he was an AFL storyteller. And in many ways his voice became an embodiment of the crowd's sentiments. On behalf of many Australians who grew up listening to him call the game, I extend my deepest sympathies to his family and friends and to the wider football and sporting community. May he rest in peace.
Thank the Leader of the Opposition. I inform the House that it is my intention to issue a writ on Wednesday, 1 April 2026, for the election of a member to serve for the electoral division of Farrer in the state of New South Wales to fill the vacancy caused by the resignation of the Honourable Susan Lee. The dates in connection with the by-election will be fixed as follows. Close of rolls Wednesday 8 April 2026. Close of nominations Monday 13 April 2026. Date of polling Saturday 9 May 2026. Return of writ on or before Friday 10th of July 2026. We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? I give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister confirm that, according to yesterday's data, since 2022, the only growth in the economy has been due to immigration and Australians working harder for less?
The call to the order. We don't need commentary before someone begins an answer. Give the call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks very much, Speaker. I thank the member for his question. And yesterday, the national accounts showed that the Australian economy was growing at its fastest rate in almost 3 years, faster than every member of the G7. And on a day when the national accounts showed household incomes and living standards are going up, the opposition was talking Australia down, as they do. They only have two settings, tearing each other down or talking Australia down. They're their two settings. Now, when the gender pay gap reached a record low, none of the blokes over there gave it a mention. When the bulk billing rate saw its biggest jump in 20 years, crickets, nothing whatsoever. When we passed 200, this is our record. This is our record. If you yelled less and listened more,
The Leader of the Opposition will state his point of order.
It goes to relevance.
Resume your seat. Resume your seat. Yeah. Yeah. I've said resume your seat. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to entertain long debates when it comes to relevance. You simply state the point of order on relevance without extra commentary. The Prime Minister was asked directly by the person two downs for you, talk about your record as an interjection. And if he's talking about his record because the Leader of the Nationals just said to him, talk about your record, well, you didn't say that either. Anyway, we're going to do this to make sure the Prime Minister is being directly relevant to the question that he was asked. The temperature is way too hot already. Things are going to be different today. And the question was asked, and now the Prime Minister is answering the question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I was talking about the national accounts, and I was also talking about our record, things that I was asked about, And the truth is that yesterday's national accounts did show the economy was growing at its fastest rate in almost 3 years. It did show that it was growing faster than every single member of the G7, all those advanced economies, and those opposite have been never more upset than when Australia is going forward. Because what they want, they think they get to go forward if Australia goes backwards. Which is why the Shadow Treasurer even puts money on it. Mr. Speaker.
Order. The member for Herbert will leave the chamber under 94A. Interjecting 7 times in one question is unacceptable. Order. We're not having a wall of noise today. I want to set the rules crystal clear so everybody knows how the chamber will be operating today and every other day. Give the call to the honourable member for Bean.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister outline the significance and outcomes of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit to Australia? How is the Albanese Labor government working with our partners to build a more peaceful and prosperous world?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Bean for his question. Indeed, the welcoming of Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, to this parliament was indeed an auspicious and a good occasion. This is a good relationship between two friendly nations and a good relationship that I have with the Prime Minister of Canada. Our common values and our common purpose underpin the cooperation between our two nations, and cooperation is indeed our clear objective, together announcing new measures to uphold and defend peace and prosperity for our peoples. And today we've done a number of upgrades of that relationship as well, enhancing collaboration and our shared advantages in critical minerals to shape emerging markets, and Australia joining the G7 Critical Minerals Production Alliance. We're backing our shared economic security with a new Clean Energy Partnership, updating the Australia-Canada Tax Treaty, and importantly deepening our cooperation on artificial intelligence as we go forward. Our cooperation in defence is strengthening through Defence Ministers' meetings, and I welcome the Defence Minister to the floor today. Our Arctic Over-the-Horizon Radar System will be Australia's largest ever defence export, benefiting both of our nations. And as two nations impacted by more frequent and severe natural disasters, together we're boosting cooperation across emergency management. And I thank Prime Minister Carney for the meeting that we had with many of the emergency service workers, the firefighters, who we were able to meet with after his address here in my courtyard in Parliament House. I reflected on the deep gratitude that the Australian people have for the support that Canadian firefighters have given to Australia almost every year, but particularly during the Black Summer bushfires. The relationship between our firefighters is a true testament of Australians and Canadians having each other's back. Mr Speaker, we do live in a changing and more challenging world. As middle powers, we need to do more together in order to shape positive change in the world together. That is Australia's pursuit, investing in our relationships, finding new opportunities from within complexity, and building the economic potential of our nation, our region and the world, always acting in the national interest, always focused on the positive difference we can make to those that we serve and represent, the Australian people. Prime Minister Carney remains, and Mrs Fox Carney are welcome guests in this country. I look forward to hosting them at the Lodge together with Jodie tonight, together with their delegation. It has been a really successful visit, and I look forward to building on this relationship.
I call the member for Goldstein. I'm also pleased to inform the House that joining us today, as the Prime Minister indicated, just resume your seat, member for Goldstein, while I'm doing some acknowledgements. Thank you. I'm pleased to inform the House that, as the Prime Minister indicated, that the Honourable David J. McGuinty, the Canadian Minister of National Defence, is in the Distinguished Visitors Gallery today. I'm also welcoming for the first time His Excellency Dr Halil Newman, the Ambassador of Israel to Australia, and I'm pleased to inform the House that present in the gallery today are the 2026 recipients of the Nuffield Australia Scholarships, awarded each year to Australian farmers to increase practical farming knowledge and management skills, as guests of the Honourable Bruce Scott, the former member for Maranoa. With the call to the Honourable Member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister confirm that, according to yesterday's data, population growth driven by immigration has grown by 1.9 million since 2022? At the same time, Labor has missed its housing targets by tens of thousands of homes.
Call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I'm asked about numbers, Mr Speaker.
Order. Members on my left will cease rejecting.
I can tell them.
The Treasurer will
I can
cease
tell them
rejecting.
what their housing figures were. Their target, it was zero. It was zero, because they didn't even have a housing minister. They didn't even have a housing minister.
Right. The member for
And when it
Maribyrnong.
comes to migration numbers, we have cut the net migration figures by over 40% in a year. The number of people arriving now
Members
is
on my left,
lower
the
than
member
it
for
was
Bowman is
under the
warned.
coalition. The latest population statement, released in early January, confirmed that population growth is expected to slow to 1.3% in the current financial year and 1.2% from 2026-27, and that this is lower than the average of 1.4% experienced during the 2010s. They are just the facts. And the fact is also that after COVID and when the borders were closed, and see if you can think about this, when the borders were closed and Australians weren't allowed to come home, when the borders opened, there were more people coming here than when the borders were closed. We're closed. We're closed.
Order.
The figures show, Mr Speaker, and I've asked about them, but they don't want to hear them, by 2030-31, Australia's population is expected to be 754,000 smaller than what the former coalition government forecast prior to the pandemic. 754,000 smaller. That's the fact, Mr Speaker. But I've asked about numbers. Well, here's some numbers for you. 1.2 million more jobs, 3 out of 5 of them full-time, 4 out of 5 in the private sector. 14 million Australians, there's a number for you. That's the number of Australians who get tax cuts under us and who would have got tax increases under them. Here's another figure for you. $233 billion better budget bottom line cumulatively over the 7 years to 2028-29. 1,300 extra GP practices now bulk billing. 1,300. 130 urgent care clinics up and running, would have been 0 under them. 3 million Australians getting a cut in their student debt. The average relief, $5,500.
Order.
And 18 gigawatts of renewable energy added, unlike what happened under them.
Once again, there was far too much noise in that answer. The member for Goldstein continually interjecting. We need to have the MPI today. So for the MPI to succeed, he needs to cease interjecting. So if the member for Goldstein keeps interjecting, we won't have the MPI today. Well, I'd like there to be an MPI, and I hope every other member does too. And I'm sure the member for Goldstein does. So I hope everyone is clear that that is the course of action. If you interject, we won't be having an MPI today. Great. And the member for Forrest is now warned for his interjections. Give a call to the honourable member for Hasluck.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Resources. How is the Albanese Labor government working with international partners like Canada to strengthen the global supply chain of critical minerals and create secure jobs here in Australia? Are there any threats to Australia's critical minerals industry?
Call to the Minister for Northern Australia and the Minister for Resources.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Hasluck for her fine question. Unlike all members on this side of the House, she knows that Labor is the only party that truly supports the resources sector of this nation. From day one, Mr Speaker, the Albanese Labor government has supported the resources industry and the over 300,000 resources workers right across this country. Every single one of these members behind me.
Order.
Mr Speaker, Australia and Canada are natural partners in critical minerals. Both of our countries are major resources producers. We have a stellar opportunity for Australia and Canada to work together to play a powerful role in shaping how global markets develop while creating secure jobs at home. Earlier today, we heard from Prime Minister Carney, who said what we know to be true, that Canada and Australia are the world's two most reliable and like-minded mining giants. We have each developed the most advanced extractive ecosystems in the world, and we are the world's critical minerals superpowers. Australia and Canada both know that we need to process and refine these critical minerals and rare earths in our own countries. And today, Prime Minister Albanese and Prime Minister Carney committed to deepening our collaboration in critical minerals with regard to standards-based markets, capital investment, having our strategic reserves work together, sharing technical expertise on geoscience and mapping, and the science of extraction and processing. And I want to thank Canada for inviting Australia to participate participate in the G7 Plus Ministers meeting, which I was able to attend in Toronto last year. And following that work, Canada has backed us in supporting us being part of an integral part of the G7 Critical Minerals Production Alliance. And I want to thank, and I hope the Minister for Defence is in the distinguished visitors space there, can pass on my thanks to my counterpart, Minister Tim Hodgson. He and I signed a joint declaration of intent between us at the meeting in Toronto last year. I'm asked about threats, Mr Speaker. I'm asked about threats to this nation's success. Well, I'll turn to the record, Mr Speaker. And if I think of what we've announced for this space, $1 billion for critical minerals investments through the National Reconstruction Fund. We legislated for this, and what did those opposite do? Well, they voted against it, Mr Speaker. And then we committed as a government $1.2 billion to establish the Critical Minerals Strategic Reserve, which is now integral to our cooperation with Canada, with other nations as well. What did they do, Mr Speaker? They opposed it. And then there's the Resourcing Australia's Prosperity Project, $3.4 billion. Well, there was radio silence on that, but then they re-announced it for themselves. And I checked today, and it's still on their website, so I guess I'll take the win in that respect. And then there's production tax incentive, which they also voted against.
Concluded. The call to the member for Warringah.
To the Prime Minister. Far-right activist group, the organisation to which incredibly the husband of the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism donated, recently platformed abhorrent claims that Angela Merkel's politics did more damage to Germany than Nazis and Adolf Hitler. Shockingly, also in attendance was former Prime Minister and Director of Fox Corporation Tony Abbott and current sitting Liberal senators. Advance AstroTurf and spreads misinformation to gain support for dangerous far-right agenda. Will the government urgently guardrail against this with intrusive political advertising laws, ban the use of generative AI and deep fakes in political advertising?
Call to the first part of the question. The Prime Minister's not really responsible for the people that you mentioned there, but the end part of the question, just to make sure it's within standing orders, is allowable. So I'll just guide the Prime Minister that way, so he understands as part of these responsibilities.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for Warringah for her question. And it is certainly the case that some of the so-called political advocacy that we've seen increasingly being used in recent years has caused division, is aimed at distressing people, and is aimed at spreading what is a hateful culture. And the examples that the member has used of comparing Angela Merkel, that I think is a highly respected former Chancellor of Germany, she is entitled to be treated with respect. And I certainly would do that, notwithstanding the fact that she certainly isn't from my side of politics in terms of the Social Democrats in Germany. But we are seeing a rise of hard right politics that sometimes needs to be called out. The matters that the member has raised, I'd be happy to have a discussion with her about whether the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters could give consideration to some of those issues. We do need to always ensure that people have freedom of expression, including freedom of political expression. We also need to make sure, of course, that on the full range of issues we ensure that disinformation and things that are simply not right are able to be called out. And the Minister for Communications might like to add as well.
Call to the Minister for Communications, the Minister for Sport.
Thanks very much. One of the reasons the Albanese government is committed to implementing a digital duty of care, which we intend to do through the Parliament this year, is to address online harms that are affecting Australians. That includes preventing nudify apps and deep fakes generated by AI, and also from hate online. We just closed the consultation process for that at the end of last year. We are now working through the consultation responses. We intend to work collaboratively with our parliamentarians to try and get this through the parliament by the end of the year to ensure that the digital duty of care.
The member for Warringah on a point of order.
Relevance. I'm talking about political advertising.
The minister was directly answering your question. I did hear her mention AI that you were asking about and deepfakes. She was in mid-sentence regarding that part of the answer. I can appreciate you want maybe a certain answer, but I've got to make sure she's being directly relevant, and she is being absolutely directly relevant.
So digital duty of care is designed to change the power balance so that the onus is on big tech to prevent harm from occurring to Australians through their own systems and policies before the harm occurs. Currently, it's kind of ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, the harm occurs, and then someone goes and reports something like misinformation and political advertising. A digital duty of care will put the onus on big tech to be responsible towards Australians from the get-go.
The minister's time has concluded. Give the call to the member for Moreton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister update the House on Australian government assistance and advice to Australian nationals impacted by conflict in the Middle East?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Moreton for her question. And late last night, the first flight in recent days arrived in Sydney from Dubai. That was a good thing. I'm sure that Australians who were able to touch down on their home soil felt very, very relieved to be home. And I confirm that right now another flight, EK414, is in the air with over 200 Australians on board. It departed Dubai at 9:16 a.m. today, Canberra time, bound for Sydney, and we are hopeful of more flights being in the air today, which is what we want to see. The most recent advice is another 2 flights are scheduled to depart to Australia today. We know that there are many Australians who are waiting for an opportunity to get home. The Australian government, the UAE and airlines in the Gulf states are working hard to secure more flights to get Australians home as soon as possible. Commercial flights remain the quickest way for Australians impacted by the conflict to get home. The situation in the region remains volatile, as we know. It's dangerous and it's fast-moving. 10 countries are now under attack by the Iranian regime. And I again reiterate the Australian government's call for Iran to cease all attacks. The government's first priority is keeping Australians safe, working with our agencies and our partners to get help to Australians who need it. Officials from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade are working around the clock and engaging surge consular capacity. The government is deploying 6 crisis response teams to the region, and we've already deployed military assets as part of our contingency planning earlier this week. I thank those Australians who are going into a dangerous situation in order to help their fellow Australians caught up in this conflict. We want to see Australians get home safely. Do not travel advice remains in place, and DFAT has activated these crisis centres to provide consular support to Australians who are impacted. We'll continue to monitor the situation. We're having all of the appropriate meetings on a daily basis. We'll continue to act where it's safe to do so to support Australians in every way that we can.
Call to the honourable member for Goldstein.
My question is to the Treasurer. Yesterday's data confirms that in the final quarter of 2025, public demand grew faster than private demand. The same time inflation started resurging. Does the Treasurer still deny the link between government spending and driving inflation higher?
Call to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thanks to the honourable member for his question. First of all, public demand in the December quarter, the key driver of that public demand was defence spending, and those opposite have called for more of that, not less of that. That's the first point. The second point was when you look at the story of 2025, the big story of 2025 was the private sector driving growth and the public sector taking a step back. Private demand grew faster and contributed over 3 times more to economic growth than public demand in annual terms, Mr Speaker. Within a year, annual private demand growth more than tripled, but annual public demand growth more than halved compared with 2024. Those are the facts of the matter, Mr Speaker. Now, when it comes to the link between spending and inflation, well, I have said on a number of occasions that we take our responsibilities seriously in the budget. That's why we found savings and delivered surpluses and got your debt down by $176 billion, because we manage the budget and we manage the economy in the most responsible way that we can, Mr Speaker. Now, yesterday's national accounts were overwhelmingly good news for our economy. Stronger growth than any major advanced economy, the strongest growth in almost 3 years, stronger per capita growth, the strongest per capita growth in more than 3 years, Mr Speaker. But those opposite, they always want to talk the economy down. And one of the reasons they always want to talk the economy down, as it was revealed yesterday, Mr Speaker, is that the Shadow Treasurer has held shares.
The Manager, Opposition Business, on a point of order.
Thanks, Speaker. It goes to Standing Order 104A, which says a question must be directly relevant to the answer. Now, you are not being in any way— sorry, the Treasurer—
Thank the—
sorry, but the noise coming from their Speaker is making it very hard to—
You've definitely made the point and read the standing order, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
So,
OK.
But that's—
if you could just bring
okay.
the Treasurer back, that would be wonderful.
Yes. We'll get there. The Leader of the House on a point of order.
What he just read out is not the standing order. I think he read it backwards.
Look, no, the manager is entitled to raise his point of order, and he's done so. The Treasurer wasn't asked about alternative policies. He wasn't asked about— I know the line that he's going down, but at this occasion he won't be able to go too far into opposition policies or opposition persons, because he wasn't asked about that. He was asked about the link between government spending and inflation, and also the data that he was asked about yesterday. Sorry, the data released yesterday. So, just to make sure that he is directly relevant, he won't be able to go down that line that he's trying to probably get into the record.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Speaker. I was asked about yesterday's numbers. I was asked about public spending. I've dealt with that in detail. I've explained the defence spending in the last quarter that those opposite have called for more of, not for less of. I've explained what's happened through the course of 2025. But what I'm trying to establish, Mr Speaker, is that when it comes to yesterday's national accounts, they were a good story, not a negative story, as those opposite are trying to paint for the people. And we know that one of the reasons for that is because the Shadow Treasurer has bet against Australia and bet against Australians. And, Mr Speaker, there's an important part of this. There's an important part of this that the House needs to know about, Mr Speaker. You don't have to shout at me, mate. I'm right
Manager
here. I'm right here.
of Opposition Business, the Treasurer will— Yes. Order. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the House of Representatives doesn't need to assist anyone at this moment. He's welcome to take a point of order, but at this stage I'll deal with the Manager of Order. Members on my right, the Manager is on his feet. He's going to be heard in silence.
Speaker, I don't know whether it was a ruling you gave the Treasurer, but your instructions were very clear that he had to be directly relevant to the question. Now, he was trying to defy the advice that you gave him, and I think he should listen.
I know. I appreciate that endorsement, Manager. Just if the Treasurer can just conclude his answer without going down that path, I think that'll help. That'll help by being directly relevant. That'll help the House.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This side of the House has been managing the budget in a responsible way. That's how we delivered 2 surpluses that those opposite were incapable of. They said they'd deliver a surplus every year. They went none for 9. We've delivered 2 already, Mr Speaker. We found $114 billion in savings. We've got the debt down by
Resume your seat. Resume your seat. All right. No, resume your seat. I'm moving to the next question. Resume your seat. We're moving to the next question. We're not turning this into some sort of yelling match. I'll give the call to the honourable member for Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. What do the recent economic figures mean for the upcoming budget and the Albanese Labor government's economic plan? How does this compare to other approaches?
The Treasurer now has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Yesterday's national accounts were really encouraging for Australia because what they showed is that we have growth which is stronger and broader, and that growth is very welcome in our economy. The strongest growth for almost 3 years, stronger growth than any major advanced economy, strong growth in business investment and dwelling investment, and a welcome tick-up in market sector productivity as well, Mr Speaker. And one of the reasons why these numbers were so welcome is because this provides a very strong foundation to work from as we navigate now this heightened sense of global economic uncertainty. Now, a number of our challenges existed in the economy before the escalation of the conflict on the weekend. But whether it's global uncertainty or our inflation challenge, we know that these international events put additional pressure on Australians. We're very focused on that as we continue to put the budget together for May. That budget in May will be all about inflation and productivity and global economic uncertainty. It will be all about rolling out the tax cuts that those opposite oppose, all about making the superannuation system stronger and fairer. Today we passed legislation to make super fairer from top to bottom. Mr Speaker, a very good thing. Now, we know that there are challenges in our economy, but we face these challenges from a position of genuine economic strength. And we prefer to work from that position of strength and to talk the economy down, which is all we get from those opposite, Mr Speaker. And yesterday we learned why that has been the case. Now, every time the Shadow Treasurer talks down the Australian economy, he's been talking up his own investments, Mr Speaker. And that's what was revealed yesterday in the House. Now, I've got some additional information on this, Mr Speaker.
Order. We'll get to it. The Treasurer's just going to pause. He was all right. We're going to do this in a really ordered manner, and the manager now is going to be heard.
Goes to Standing Order 90, which is reflection on members. Now, we do not want to head down this path because no, we don't, because two can play this game, and you want to be very, very careful.
Yeah. Order. I'll just remind the Treasurer of that standing order, but he is entitled to answer the question any way he wishes regarding when he was asked about how does compare to other approaches, and he'll need to either refer to other answers or perhaps there's articles which he was reading yesterday about this topic. Just can't get up and give an opinion about another member because that would be imputing motive or doing that. So I've just got to draw the Treasurers to that part of the standing orders, and we listen carefully to how he answers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. You're quite right that this was reported in The Guardian and the Australian Financial Review.
No, the member for Bowra is on his feet. Oh. Sure.
Speaker, understanding order 60.
People can take points of order in the moment when it's occurring, but we're just not going to have a free-for-all on this.
Draw your attention to Standing Order 68. The member for Goldstein has given a personal explanation on this matter to correct the misrepresentation, and I ask you to draw the member's attention because they're repeating the matter complained of, and I ask you to intervene on that regard.
Yeah, I did give a direction to a guidance to the Treasurer beforehand, and he will take that into consideration, and the matter was dealt with yesterday at the conclusion of question time, not in the most appropriate way, but we did deal with it. So I want the Treasurer to be very specific rather than giving any opinions about this matter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And actually what I'm about to say refers to the personal explanation that was given yesterday, so I appreciate the prompt from the Shadow Minister. Now, what the Shadow Treasurer said yesterday was, I can inform the House that on Monday I submitted a statement of declaration that I had removed those shares, but it had not been published, Mr Speaker. I have here the Shadow Treasurer's Register of Members' Interests, which shows that that was not submitted until today, Mr Speaker. But that was not submitted until today, the 5th of March 2026,
we'll hear the point of order.
Mr Speaker.
Treasurer will pause. Order. Members on my right. We'll get through this. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the House of Representatives.
Sure. So this point of order is on relevance. The member for Hunter asked about the recent economic figures and what they mean for the budget. He then asked the Treasurer to compare their economic plan with other approaches, not delve into people's financial arrangements.
Resume your seat. Yeah. Resume your seat. When the order, members on my right, when you're asked a question, and that's not completely correct, how does this compare to other approach? How does this? No, we'll for the all benefit of the House. The question did contain the question: how does this compare to other approaches? So that is why the Treasurer has been directly relevant.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The contrast I'm drawing is we are working hard on the economic challenges that we confront together, but we also recognise Australia's economic strengths. Those opposite keep talking the Australian economy down, Mr Speaker. We're optimistic about the future, even if they are not, Mr Speaker. So to paraphrase the late great Dennis Cometti, Mr Speaker, the Shadow Treasurer came into the week optimistically, he finishes the week mystopically, Mr Speaker, and that's what we're seeing with the Shadow Treasurer.
Before I call the member for Lindsay, I'm pleased to inform the House that we've now been joined on the floor of the Parliament by an important parliamentary delegation from the Parliament of Ukraine, led by Dr. Galina Mikhailiuk. On behalf of all members, we welcome you and, of course, our good friend, the Ambassador. Give a call to the member for Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. On Labor's cost of living crisis, my constituent Brett told me, quote, "There is no money left after our mortgage, bills and groceries are paid for." While Russell told me, quote, "Things are out of control. Power, insurance, food have doubled. I can't keep up." Does the Prime Minister accept responsibility for the impact his decisions are having on lowering the living standards of Australians?
Call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Another tight question from those opposite, Mr Speaker. I'm asked about Brett and Russell. Well, I hope that Brett and Russell got told by the member for Lindsay that more than 1.2 million jobs have been created since we were in government. I hope that they're being told.
Order.
I hope that they're being told when it comes to cost of living that we have given Brett and Russell, if they work, a tax cut already substantial as a result of the changes that we made to their unfair Stage 3 tax cuts. I hope that they said that they were opposed to that, and I note some of them are still opposed to that tax cut through their interjection, helpfully put forward by one of the new shadow ministers down the end there in their revolving door that is their entry forward and back from the front bench, Mr Speaker. But I hope that the member for Lindsay has also told Brett and Russell that they were going to reverse the tax cuts that they're going to get in July.
Order. The member for Barker.
And then that they were also opposed to the tax cut they're going to get next July. And of course, I hope as well that the member for Lindsay has told Brett and Russell that she, along with other members of the coalition, have opposed every one of our submissions that have gone forward arguing for pay rises in submissions to the Fair Work Commission. And indeed, I hope as well that they've been told that they were opposed to the 2.6 million Australians who work public holidays, weekends, late nights and early mornings, that we protected their penalty rates. Those opposite want to get rid of them, And I hope as well that they've been told that the member for Lindsay opposed the measures that we've put in place to assist with bulk billing, the 130 urgent care clinics. If Brett and Russell have got a student debt, if they studied at TAFE or university, that she opposed that as well. And if Brett and Russell have children, then the more than 1 million families who have paid thousands of dollars a year less with cheaper childcare, that makes a difference as well. Now,
the
all of
Prime
these
Minister
measures...
will pause. The member for Barker has had a good go today. He's going to leave the chamber under 94A. Order. It's far too disorderly just to be yelling, saying what you want. It is the Parliament of Australia. It is not. Order.
A popular decision on both sides of the House, Mr Speaker, and I congratulate you on it.
Give the call to the honourable member for Cornwall.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. What steps has the Albanese Labor government taken to improve Australia's fuel security and sovereign capability? Why did the failures of the past make this work essential?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for Cornwall for his question and congratulate him on the role he's playing since his election last year. And, Mr Speaker, as the situation in the Middle East continues to deteriorate, Australians can be reassured that we enter this crisis well prepared. With 1.5 billion litres of petrol and 3 billion litres of diesel in our national stockpile, which is held in Geelong and in Lytton, which is a stockpile that was brought into force by law as one of the first acts of this government in 2023. Now, it is the case, Mr Speaker, that we hold that stockpile of petrol and diesel in our 2 refineries. We would be better prepared if we had 6 refineries, and when Labor lost office in 2013 there were 6 refineries operating in Australia. When we came back to office in 2022 there were just 2 refineries operating in Australia. And when Altona was shut, the Altona refinery was shut in 2020, the member for Hume said, and I quote, "This will not negatively impact on Australia's fuel stock holdings." Well, it didn't help. It didn't help, Mr Speaker, it's fair to say, the closure of Altona and the closure of Kwinana and the others. And in relation to urea, Mr Speaker, I'm also pleased to advise Australia's truckies that we have a stockpile of 5 weeks' worth of technical-grade urea, which adds to 12 weeks of privately held supplies, which means that we have very good supplies and backups for urea. Now, yet again, Mr Speaker, we saw the closure. The reason that stockpile is necessary is because we saw the closure of Australia's only urea manufacturer in Gibson Island, announced in 2021, Mr Speaker, announced in 2021. And Senator Canavan was out this morning. As you know, I'm always looking for bipartisanship, and he said, "We used to produce urea in Australia. It's another sad story." Well, he's right. We did used to produce urea in Australia, and it is a sad story that urea manufacturing closed while the member for Hume was Minister for Energy. But I have good news. Urea manufacturing is coming back under the Albanese Labor government, Mr Speaker, because Perdaman in Karratha is seeing 2,500 construction workers as we speak, making a manufacturing facility which will produce 2.3 million tonnes of urea. And I congratulate the Minister for Resources for the Northern Australia Infrastructure Fund, which has helped construct and fund this facility. So, Mr Speaker, I was unaware the member for Maranoa was working with the Minister for Resources to support this program, claiming credit for here in 2026 a construction work underway. Mr Speaker, sovereign capability is not about an Instagram video next to old cars, and it's not about spreading misinformation about net zero. Building sovereign capability is hard work working with industry, and that's what the Albanese government is doing, correcting the deindustrialisation of the last 10 years.
Give the call to the honourable member for Hinkler.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. In my electorate of Hinkler, demand for emergency relief is skyrocketing. The Harvey Bay Neighbourhood Centre usually serves 80 meals to those in need every Wednesday night. It has now increased to 120. Most of those meals are for children. Does the Prime Minister accept responsibility for the impacts his decisions are having on Australia's lower living standards?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Hinkler for his question. What I, of course, accept responsibility for is the policies of this government. I accept responsibility for the fact that since July 1, we've delivered a pay rise for all minimum and award wage workers, taking the total increase for Labor to over $9,000 since we were elected. I accept responsibility for the fact that we've increased the superannuation guarantee to 12%. I accept responsibility for the fact that paid parental leave has been expanded to 24 weeks. It'll be coming to 26 weeks, and super is now being paid on paid parental leave, something that the Shadow Treasurer has had some really interesting things to say about.
Order.
I take responsibility for the fact that those constituents would have received energy bill relief, that if they are studying, then they would have got the cut to student debt of average of $5,500. If they're doing TAFE or their children are going to do TAFE, then they could be one of the 725,000 Australians who've done that. The $10,000 bonus that's there for housing apprentices as well. They would have benefited from the fact if they or someone in their family has a health issue.
Order. Sorry, I was talking to the member for Goldstein. The Prime Minister will just pause. He was asked a question. Order. Order. I don't need to be pointed at. I don't know who you're pointed to. The Prime Minister is going to pause so I can hear the member for Page on a point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. The point of order is 104.A. The question was directly related to the demand for emergency relief skyrocketing.
Resume your seat. That is not a point of order. The Prime Minister was asked about does he accept responsibility for impact on his government, and he's using the words "what I take responsibility for" and outlining the impact of his government. So if you ask a question about that, about the impact of his government, he's going to talk about, obviously, the impact that he believes that the government has done. So no more frivolous points of order. 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 The manager. We've had one point of order. I'll hear from the manager because of his position.
I'll just wait for the Prime Minister.
What? State the point of order. Or resume your seat. Let's get through this.
Member for Gippsland raised a very good point of order yesterday.
What's the point of order?
When we take a point of order, the Speaker sitting down so we can make the point of
resume
order.
Your seat. I explained to the House that the member for Goldstein was having my attention. That's why I was missing things. So if everyone could just do things in an orderly way, and I apologise to the member for Page that I didn't see him, but the member for Goldstein was. I was dealing with another issue with him, a matter for him. Point of order has been made. We'll remind all members to follow the standing orders. The member for Hinkler has asked his question. We've had the point of order. Prime Minister's being directly relevant.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. And they've also got to be on the TV, and I congratulate them for that. Small mercies, Mr Speaker. Small mercies.
Order.
And what the member mightn't know, because he's new here, is that those opposite cut $20 million from emergency relief that we had to put back. So we put it back. $20 million we put back, they took out. Typical of what's occurred. Mr Speaker,
Order.
If they continue to ask questions like that, then we'll continue to take advantage of answering it. Emergency relief, you cut, we put money back. Simple as that. It's not that hard to get on top of. But the truth is as well that the range of measures that we have put in place, including 1-800 Medicare, including the education measures, including all of this support, make a difference for people. And all of them are opposed by those opposite. All of them are opposed by those opposite who just want to tear each other down and talk Australia down.
The member for Dixon now has the call.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to help Australians get into their first home, and how does this compare to alternative approaches?
The call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Speaker, thank you, and I thank the member for Dixon for her question. As Labor people, we share a really simple belief, and that is that home ownership should be available to ordinary Australians. Speaker, our government has now backed 1,700 people in the member for Dixon's electorate into their first home, and we're proud to have done it. Speaker, the member for Dixon recently talked to me about Matthew, a local teacher she met at a street stall. He came over to thank her, Speaker. He's a middle-income earner, and he and his family have been able to buy their first home under our 5% deposit program. Now, Matthew is far from alone, Speaker. He is one of 230,000 Australians right around this country who have got into home ownership with our government's backing. Speaker, this is a massive number of people. In fact, for the first time in Australian history, more than half of the first home buyers in the market are in the market with the support and the backing of their government. Now, Speaker, the 5% deposit program is hugely popular with the people who desperately need that support. But what is really extraordinary is that those opposite oppose this support.
The Minister will pause. The member for Parkes has interjected 15 times. He will leave the chamber under 94A. You may sit a long way away, but that's no excuse to continually to be interjecting non-stop through every single answer. The Minister will now continue.
Thank you, Speaker. So 230,000 people across the country helped into first home ownership. Inexplicably, those opposite oppose this incredibly popular program. Why would this be, Speaker? Well, they have said that the 5% deposit program will be used by the children of billionaires. Like Gina Rinehart's children are going to be buying an affordable home with a 95% mortgage in the member for Dixon's electorate. Yeah, right. They also call this a gimmick, Speaker, and this is the one that really gets me. Let's just call this for exactly what it is, and that is pure snobbery. How do you think it feels for someone like Matthew or the 230,000 other people who have needed this program to get into the market to be told that this is somehow a gimmick? Speaker, this program is one that helps the average first home buyer in our country go from having to save for 10 or 11 years to get into their first home all the way back to 2 or 3. That is 8 years that that young person is paying off their own mortgage rather than someone else's, and those opposite call it a gimmick. Speaker, I want every one of the 1,660 Australians in the electorate of Farrer to know that we have helped them get into a home ownership through a program that those opposite want to shut down. I want the 5,612 Australians supported in the member for Latrobe's electorate to know that he thinks that they must be the children of billionaires. And I want the 1,224 Australians in the member for Hume's electorate to know that if it were up to him, then they would still be renting.
Resume your seat. I know where you're going to go, so we'll just remind, can the Minister refer to people with the correct titles? Yeah. It's only a relatively new thing that this has been taken up, I might add, to those opposite. Order. 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 The Minister's got 13 seconds remaining. Continue.
Speaker, as we've seen today, those opposite are an absolute rabble who, as usual, are focused on creating chaos and fighting against each other. But there's one group of people that our government is here for every single day, and that's the Australian people. Speaker.
Call to the honourable member for Ryan.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Corporate profiteering by big gas corporations skyrocketed after the invasion of Ukraine, causing rising power bills, and it's about to happen again, thanks to Trump and Netanyahu's attack on Iran, which you support. These corporations literally take Australian gas for free and make obscene profits from it. Will you put a 25% tax on gas exports, as advocated for by the ACTU?
Call to the Minister for Resources and the Minister for Northern Australia.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for her question. I'd like to let the member know that imposing new costs on the gas industry would freeze gas production in this country, and a tax on gas exports, as has been proposed by those opposite in the last election, would discourage investment in the new supply we need to back up our transition to net zero. We need gas as a firming capacity for renewables, whether that be solar or wind. This is what the International Energy Agency says, this is what AEMO says, as well as the International Panel on Climate Change. Many highly reputable global institutions that look at these matters agree there is a role for gas in net zero. But really importantly, we have worked and we have legislated the net zero target, and gas will support it. But in relation to putting more costs onto the gas industry, when in fact they do pay a significant amount of tax into our system, and I would also add they employ many Australians right around the country, whether it be in north-western Western Australia or in Darwin, also in the north of Queensland, as well as even in Victoria, as it turns out, and also in South Australia. It's a very important industry, and thank you for the question.
The member for Ryan, on a point of order.
Relevant, Speaker. The question was about taxing gas supply, not the
minister's concluded her answer. Give a call to the member for Braddon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. What progress is being made to boost high school completion rates and student attendance? What are the risks?
Give a call to the Minister for Education.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank my friend, the brilliant member for Braddon, for her question. And her question prompts me to inform the House of some very good news, because information out this morning shows that the number of kids finishing high school is going back up. The number of boys finishing high school is going up. The number of girls finishing high school is going up. The number of kids at Catholic and independent schools finishing high school is going up. And the number of kids at public schools finishing high school is going up. And this is a big deal because basically for the last decade it's been going in the opposite direction. It's been going down and down and down, and now it's starting to turn around. This is good news because, as most of us will know, it's more important to finish high school today than it was when we went to school. Now it's your ticket to the show, because so many jobs require you to finish school and then go on to TAFE or to university. Now, I'm asked about risks, and I think everyone here will remember what happened last time the Liberals were in power, how they ripped the guts out of our public schools, how they ripped $30 billion out of our public schools, and that's when all of this started. We're still dealing with the consequences of it, because it wasn't just the number of kids finishing school that went down, it was the number of kids going to school that went down as well. School attendance rates under the Liberals dropped from 93% down to 86%. And the good news is that's going back up now too, for the first time in a decade. What else happened under the Liberal Party? Teacher shortages went through the roof. And I can now tell the House some good news, that's turning around as well. There are now more school teachers than ever before, and more people enrolling to become a teacher as well. That's up 6% this year. But it's just the start. There is so much more that we need to do. That's why we're fixing the funding of our public schools, the biggest new investment in our schools by an Australian government ever. And that's not a blank cheque, that's funding tied to reform, the sort of reform we need to make sure that kids learn to read and to write and to count, things like evidence-based teaching, things like phonics checks for kids when they're little to identify kids who need more help, and things like small group tutoring to give them the help that they need, so that we make sure that kids who fall behind catch up and keep up, and even more kids finish high school.
Give a call to the member for McPherson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Multicultural Affairs. Has the minister investigated all funding commitments, both secret and public, made by the Albanese Labor government to extremist Islamic organisations which have mourned the death of the evil Ayatollah Khomeini.
Order. The Minister has the call.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for his question, though I do take some issue with the inference there about secret funding. The funding of which was spoken about earlier this week was very much publicly made. The commitment was very publicly made. And as I said in this House, in response to questions from the Shadow Minister at the time of finding out about the incident that happened, I asked the department to stop what was an active process that has now been stopped. In relation to further matters, I will reiterate what I said last time in this House, and that is that this government takes very seriously the fact that all public funding that goes to any organisation, whether they are religious organisations, whether they are cultural organisations or sporting organisations, we take very seriously the role that they play in ensuring that their activities are in line with the standards that Australian taxpayers expect.
Call to the honourable member for Solomon.
Yeah, thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering for aged care workers and the people that they care for? Why is this necessary, and how does it differ from other approaches?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for Solomon for his question. He, along with the member for Lingiari, have been tireless advocates for better aged care services for older Territorians, and that's why our government is investing $60 million to build a new aged care facility in Palmerston. Mr Speaker, it takes a very special person to work in the aged care sector. Dedicated, highly skilled. They show up every single day and they afford our loved ones the dignity and the safety that they deserve. And that's why this Labor government, since coming to office, has delivered the biggest pay increase in the history of aged care. So far, 4 rounds of fully funded pay rises, recognising aged care work as the professional, essential work that it is. Today, the average registered nurse in aged care is making $28,000 more a year than they did before, meaning the award has increased by about $550 a week. These are life-changing numbers. They are delivered by this government and by this Prime Minister. We've mandated registered nurses in aged care homes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we've implemented mandatory care minutes because we know that care isn't just a task to be completed. It's a relationship between 2 human beings, and when it's done right, both workers and older people benefit alike. But, Mr Speaker, the contrast with those opposite could not be starker. When they were in government, the Royal Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety handed them a roadmap for reform. A roadmap built on the testimony of older Australians, their families and the workers who saw firsthand what neglect truly looked like. And what did they do? They sat on it, they delayed, they watered down, and then ultimately they walked away. And this is an ancient history, Mr Speaker. We're still working today to address the consequences of choices that those opposite made and that they have never properly accounted for. We shouldn't be surprised that the Leader of the Opposition hates workers, Mr Speaker. He made that very, very clear as Shadow Treasurer. He opposed tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer. He planned to cut 36,000 public servants, which would have hollowed out aged care. He planned to strip protections from casual workers. That's tens of thousands of aged care workers around Australia. This is a man who couldn't be trusted when he was auditioning for the top job, Aged care workers and the people they care for should be very nervous about ever letting him near the budget again. This government came to office with a clear commitment to fix what was broken, to resource what had been starved, and to treat aged care workers with the respect that they deserve while they care for the people that we love.
Call to the honourable member for Clark.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Communications. Minister, it's almost 3 years since the Murphy report unanimously recommended a phase-out of gambling advertising. So, when will you be tabling the government's response to that report, and by what date will you actually legislate a ban on gambling advertising? Or is the Prime Minister continuing to block this sensible and popular reform?
Order. The Minister has the call.
Thank you for the question. The Albanese government has delivered the most significant online wagering harm reduction initiatives of the past decade, including launching BetStop and banning the use of credit cards for online wagering. BetStop is the most significant gambling reform of the past decade. It was this government that delivered those reforms, and we're really proud of the positive impact that it's having. Just last week, we released the review of BetStop, which found that BetStop is a successful policy and delivering on its objectives. That review, which we released for media and for the public last week, suggested several changes to maximise BetStop's reach and impact in addressing gambling harms, including improving community awareness through increased marketing and promotion. I've written to state and territory ministers and to peak bodies to help promote this vital service to frontline workers who are often the first point of contact for people experiencing gambling harm. I will continue to work with harm reduction advocates.
The Minister will pause. The member for Clark on a point of order.
Point of order on relevance, Speaker. The question goes to the fundamental issue of the Prime Minister personally blocking reform.
Well, no, that doesn't. The question contained a number of parts, including the timeline for the Murphy report, about the impact on this issue on community. When will the government be responding to the report, and what date? You were specific, and that was the last part of the question, and it was borderline because you're imputing a motive by the Prime Minister there. But the Minister is being directly relevant. I'm listening to her carefully about what the government is doing on that topic. Now, if she was talking about something else, she would not be directly relevant. If she was talking about another policy topic, I'd pull her into line. But I'm listening to her carefully, just making sure that she's being directly relevant about the question that she was asked, and I'll ask her to remain directly relevant.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Albanese, this government has undertaken some of the most significant harm reduction measures that we have seen in the Federation. We have banned the use of credit cards for online wagering. We have launched BetStop. We have forced online wagering companies to send their customers monthly activity statements outlining their wins and their losses. We have provided direct funding for specialist financial counselling to support people affected by problem gambling. We have introduced new minimum classifications for video games with gambling-like content. We have introduced new evidence-based taglines in wagering advertising. We have introduced nationally consistent staff training in this space, and we have established mandatory customer ID verification for online wagering. We have done all of this work since we were elected to the Parliament, to government, and I will continue to meet with harm reduction advocates, some of whom were in my office earlier this week, with broadcasters and with sporting codes, as we seek to look at further ways that we can minimise the harms of gambling.
Call to the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and Defence Personnel. How is the Albanese Labor government supporting our veteran community, and how does this compare to what the government inherited?
Give a call to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and the Minister for Defence Personnel.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Richmond for her important question, because the Albanese government is focused on delivering for Australia's veterans, those still serving and those former serving, and that's including by delivering a Veterans and Families Hub in the Tweed. We've transformed how veterans can access a wide range of support, not only speeding up claims processing so they can get that assistance that they need sooner, but also making sure that that assistance is best practice. be it cutting-edge medical treatment, psychosocial supports or community connection. I'm proud that we've been working to better support our defence people from the day they sign up and throughout their career, making sure that they can better access healthcare and education and service to set them up for success. Now, Defence and the Department of Veterans Affairs are working more closely together to mitigate and ideally prevent illness and injury of all kinds. We want to see that our veteran community is well for longer. When we came into government, though, in 2022, DVA was chronically underfunded and under-resourced. This had serious negative real-world consequences for veterans and their families. It meant that for too long, veterans were not able to access the supports that they needed due to a lack of staffing and a lack of investment into DVA. There had been a revolving door of ministers, not 6 in 9 years. This has meant that veterans were not getting a fair go from the previous government. They didn't have a true champion in the coalition government. But I do want to give credit to my immediate predecessor, because the member for Calare, who now sits on the crossbench, he did try to turn it around. He called it out, even when he was a member of the coalition government. He said it was a dire situation. He even threatened to resign. He threatened to resign from the same ministry that featured the now leader of the opposition. He pointed out that the former government was only prioritising funding that had a political advantage, and that, quote, they didn't feel there was a political advantage in funding veterans' issues.
Order.
While some things change, some things just stay the same, Mr Speaker. The Liberals may change their leader, but they won't change the way that they are. The Albanese government is focused on delivering for our veterans, while they are the same old Liberals. They have learnt nothing.
Give the call to the honourable member for McPherson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Multicultural Affairs. Has the minister investigated all funding commitments made to organisations who have mourned the death of the evil Ayatollah Khomeini?
Call to the order. Give the call to the minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I do thank the member for his question. I'm not quite sure how else I can articulate this other than to repeat again that there is an expectation from this government that all organisations that receive funding conduct themselves under the expectations and within the expectations of Australian taxpayers. The situation in question I have spoken about before in Parliament in question time and answered questions with regard to that particular situation, where I have informed the House of a situation where there was an active submission in place, which was later stopped after that particular organisation was found to have.
The manager, just, if you're going to raise a point of order, you can, but I don't want banter. We just had that debate yesterday with the member for Gippsland. Yeah.
Thank
so
you,
if the
Mr.
minister
Speaker.
can direct her comments through the chair, and if the manager jumps up, he'll get the point of order, but not coming up to when a minister is at the dispatch box and just having a chat.
Yes. Thank you, Mr Speaker. So just to clarify on the situation that was raised in question time earlier this week, that matter was an active submission that was stopped because we were concerned about social cohesion, and I took the decision to stop it there. And as I've said before, there is that expectation that exists for organisations, and funding.
If they don't want to hear it, just finish it.
I'm done.
Resume your seat. Order. Order. Has the minister concluded her answer? Yeah. Give a call. Order. Order. Members on my left. Order. When the House comes to order. Order. We'll now like to hear from the honourable member for Lingiari.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. Minister, how is the Albanese Labor government making medicines cheaper for all Australians after a decade of cuts and neglect? and how are patients benefiting from new treatments listed on the PBS?
Give the call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker, and to the member for Lingiari. Like everyone on this side, we are so enormously proud of that great Labor legacy, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme that was achieved by a Labor government decades and decades ago against the opposition of the Liberal Party at the time, against the opposition of groups like the then British Medical Association. But we stuck to the fight, and it's delivered one of the best medicine systems in the world. Since we came to government, we've added 400 new or amended listings to the PBS. Terrific listings like the reproductive health medicines, the menopause treatments, cancer treatments, so many others, all of them fantastic additions to the therapies available to Australian patients. But I have to say none of them is more exciting than the listing I announced on Sunday for a whole of cancer eligibility for an immunotherapy called Opdivo and Yervoy. This has been saving thousands of lives here in Australia and hundreds of thousands across the world for several years now. And we've been struggling to get a listing that would allow clinicians to make that drug available to everyone with any type of cancer. This is going to be particularly important for those rarer cancers where it's very difficult to put together a clinical trials case for a specific listing. I joined a constituent of mine in the western suburbs of Adelaide, Josh Galpin. He'd had a relatively minor melanoma. It had been treated. He thought he was all fine. Then went into hospital to discover in his late 30s he was riddled with tumours through a range of different organs. He could have had chemotherapy, but with very little chance of survival. He could have had some inhibitors that are on the PBS, maybe with a survival for 2 years. But his clinician, Professor Roberts-Thomson, recommended Opdivo and Yervoy, which has largely cured all of these tumours. He's seen his oldest child graduate high school, his other 2 children get into adolescence, but he had to pay $100,000 for that. His parents deferred their retirement. His nan lended him some money. His workmates did a crowdfunding campaign to get that money together. And when he joined us at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital on Sunday, Mr Speaker, he said this PBS listing would mean thousands and thousands of Australians from now on won't have to go through that. They won't have to deal with the financial pressure in addition to the trauma of potentially not surviving your children's schooling years. So this will benefit about 5,000 Australians every single year, Mr Speaker. It is the first listing of its kind anywhere in the world. These immunotherapies are life-changing and life-saving. Not only will it now mean that no one pays $100,000, they'll be paying cheaper strips thanks to this government.
Give the call to the honourable member for Mayo.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Attorney-General. At least 1 in 6 older people report experiencing elder abuse and neglect, financial, familial, psychological, physical. There's been no national plan to address this since 2023. When will the government release the new national plan to respond to the abuse of older Australians to deal with this crisis?
Give the call to the Attorney-General.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for her question on a topic that is not discussed enough in our society and I think in our political discourse. And I thank her for particularly going to the issue of the National Plan for Elder Abuse. I can assure the member that work on that is underway, and I will be in a position to make announcements in the near future on how that is progressing. But I will say 2 things. Firstly, elder abuse needs to be understood for what it is. It is insidious, it is often unseen, and unfortunately it too often happens at the hands of relatives as well. We are now in a position where we understand the data much more fully, and that is a role that this government and this portfolio has been fulfilling, and it is one that is informing our policy processes going forward. Secondly, as the member will be well aware, elder abuse is also addressed at a state level, and the need to have coordination in that context is vitally important. And I can assure the member that this has been an item that is being discussed at the Standing Council of Attorneys General, which I chair, and we only had our meeting only a few weeks ago. So I thank the member very sincerely for her interest. I will engage with the member as we lead up in this process, and of course my door is always open for other members who wish to engage as well.
The call to the member for Gorton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Employment and Workplace Relations. How is the Albanese Labor government improving outcomes for Australian workers, and what has been the response?
Let's give a call to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Gorton for her question, and it was wonderful to join her with workers that keep the Melbourne airport going just recently. Now, 2 years ago, our government introduced historic reforms to improve pay, job security and working conditions for Australians. These reforms included the right to disconnect, allowing Australians to unplug after hours guilt-free. Jacob, a science teacher, said that this change helped him rediscover his passion for education and said it eased our workload pressure so that we can better focus our energies on what we do best, teaching. This reform is being embraced by both workers and employers, with more than half of businesses surveyed by the HR Institute indicating the right to disconnect improved employee engagement and productivity. It was therefore very, very disappointing that the Leader of the Opposition jumped to reject this proposal on ABC Insiders, where he said, well, obviously he would undo the right to disconnect. Now, of course, the government also introduced same job, same pay laws, which legislated a very, very simple principle. Two people doing the same job should be paid the same. This reform is delivering pay increases to more than 8,000 workers right across Australia. Workers like Alicia, a flight attendant, who is now getting a 20% pay increase. Alicia said, I feel like I'm an equal. I feel like I'm valued now. While our government is delivering for people like Alicia, the Leader of the Opposition slammed this change, claiming it was dangerous and characterised it as un-Australian. Well, Mr Speaker, you know what is un-Australian? Telling people like Alicia she isn't equal and she doesn't deserve the same pay as her colleagues. Now, our government is ensuring workers on digital platforms have access to a decent standard of living that other workers enjoy. Workers like Melbourne delivery driver Eric, who told the ABC in November that our changes are going to make a huge difference to easing cost of living pressures. Now, what did the Leader of the Opposition do when these laws were proposed? Well, he went to the HR Nichols Society and said that gig workers having minimum standards in pay would be disastrous. Now, the Leader of the Opposition has consistently championed repealing our fairer laws and consistently tried to make life harder for Alicia, Jacob and Eric and workers right across Australia. The Liberals might have changed their leader, but the same old Liberals haven't seen a pay increase they won't deny.
Call to the Prime Minister. Order.
It's only 3:30.
Order. Members on my left. Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, can I give a shout-out to John Paul College from Daisy Hill in the Treasurer's electorate up there. They're very pleased with that little shout-out. Well done. And in their interest and everyone else's, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.
Before I get to the member for Goldstone, the member for Clark had indicated in an order of precedence how I'm approached. Order. So we'll deal with the member for Clark, who is claiming a misrepresentation, and I give the call to the member for Clark. Do you claim to be misrepresented?
Speaker, I do claim to be misrepresented.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. In fact, I was misrepresented egregiously, Speaker. Yesterday on afternoon briefing, the Shadow Minister for Defence, Senator Patterson, claimed that in an interview with Radio National Breakfast I made, and I'll quote Senator Patterson, Strange and factually incorrect observations. For example, he said that the Iraq War was launched in the lead-up to the mid-term elections in the United States, as this was, well, actually the Iraq War commenced in 2003 after the mid-term elections in the lead-up to a presidential election. Now, Speaker, I'm sorry, that wasn't grammatically very good, but that's what he said. Now, Speaker, Senator Patterson may not have been listening closely enough, because if he listens back, he'll find that I clarified that, and I'll quote myself now, back in 2003, that was just after the 2002 congressional mid-term elections, when the Republicans had really beaten the drums of war, and they did well in those congressional mid-terms, but by that stage they were on an inevitable course to have that conflict." End of quote. Now, Speaker, given that Senator Patterson was a minor at the time, he may not have been paying as close attention.
We don't need explanations, as I explained to the House when the member for Goldstein tried this yesterday with his commentary. I just need you to say where you've been misrepresented, not further commentary.
Thank you, Speaker. Then I'll leave it there, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Give a call to the member for Goldstein. Does the member claim to be misrepresented?
I do, Speaker.
You may proceed.
Speaker, during question time today, the Treasurer continued a campaign of misinformation against me. I guess you only heard the ones you love. I'm a married man, Treasurer. On Monday, I submitted—
the member for Goldstein, I just explained to the House, if you're going to continue with this, you will not get the chance to use this as a procedure of the House. It's an indulgence I'm granting you. You're currently abusing it, as the member for Clark did as well. The rules apply to everyone. I need you to state where you've been misrepresented, and no more, no less.
Thank you, Speaker. During question time today, the Treasurer misrepresented me in claiming that I had updated my register of interests on today. This is not correct. As this document will show, on Monday I submitted an alteration of interests to the registrar. This is the receipt, and I seek leave to table it, as it was only published today. I seek leave to table it. You keep saying all we need to do is accept it.
Leave is not granted.
I thank the member. I'll deal with it. Before I move, we'll deal with the member for Chifley, who raised this issue with me regarding the member's registered instrument, regarding an individual's alteration. The issue that the member raised about was the timing and had there been any changes with the approach. When alterations occur, and as one did occur this week, the issue was that it contained extraneous material which was not published. When a new alteration was allocated, which was today, regarding the same matter, without the extra commentary, which was published today, it has today's date on it, being a new submission. There go. The procedures have not changed. Before I call the Leader of the House, pursuant to Standing Order 17, I lay on the table my warrant revoking the nomination of the Honourable Member for Forrest and nominating the Honourable Member for Wright to be a member of the Speaker's panel to assist the Chair when requested to do so by the Speaker or Deputy Speaker. I present the Auditor General's Performance Audit Report No. 23 of 2025-26, entitled Suicide Prevention Policy Development and Monitoring, Department of Health and Disability and Ageing. Now the Leader of the House with papers.
Mr Speaker, these documents are tabled in accordance with the list circulated to the honourable members earlier today. For details of the documents will be recorded in the votes and proceedings.